Okay, so hey everyone. So today we're going to be going through how to study for law exams. And this is just a combination of both some general tips and some more specific ones that I've really just gathered through going through my law degree so far. Currently, I haven't really mentioned this so far. Well, kind of, but yeah, I'm a law commerce third degree student, just finished up my third year. So these are some tips that I've gathered and everything, which, yeah, I obviously want to relay, as much as possible. So, how do I study for law exams? Obviously, you can see on screen what I've got, and I'll just keep going through this. I've got a bit more down, which we'll scroll down to. But yeah, so how do I study for law exams? That's the first point. So first off, and apologies for my throat. It's a bit croaky right now. I'm not exactly sure why. I think it's a combination of I've had too many shots of vodka and tequila over the past few days, and I'm sick. I've been around too many people, so I'm sure someone gave me something. So I think it's probably a combination of those two. Anyway, so first off, it's necessary to understand what a law exam is. Now, this isn't like some like philosophical statement. What's a law exam? Like what is life? We could ponder about that for hours. But anyway, really a law exam is comprised of a combination of usually problem questions, which test how well you can apply the theory and content of what has been taught to a given scenario. So usually a factual scenario of some type. So for example, Sally kills Harry. And then the question is Sally liable for murder or for manslaughter? Something like that. We've got the factual scenario, and you just have to apply what you know to that scenario. So that's basically what a law exam is comprised of, mainly those problem type questions. However, there can be some other ones, such as a policy question, which is usually, looking at the actual policy of the law, policy behind the law, to say, is this fair, is this not, should something be changed, do you agree with this, yes or no, discuss, to elaborate on it further, for something like is the law around murder, sufficient to, or is beyond reasonable doubt, sufficient, or should this be changed to maybe the based on probabilities, so like it is for, say, a civil case. So yeah, the balance of probabilities, that was. So yeah, to understand the theory that we need to end up doing a law exam as best as possible, what we need to be able to do is apply this theory to this factual scenario. So this means there are two necessary steps which need to be addressed. The first one of this is having a thorough understanding of the theory. And then the second one is being able to apply the theory to a factual scenario. So note, getting better at this second step will actually help at getting better at number one. So as you apply theory, you'll realize, and you probably have realized as, say you go into exam period, you're doing a lot of exams and everything, your actual understanding of the theory, the content of the law gets better. So yeah, there's these two big steps which you need to undergo. And how hard you want to work at these obviously can differ. However, if you're watching this video, I'm sure you're clearly committed to doing well and maximizing your marks. Otherwise, you'd just be going off doing something else. And then we've got, two different periods with two different focuses is what we're looking at with number one and number two. So number one, I would suggest mainly looking at during the semester. And then number two, I would mainly look at, say, post-semester. And what I mean by in-semester and post-semester is, say, in semester, you've got like your 12 weeks of university, and then say after that you have a study week, so that would be, say, week 13 kind of, if you kept the semester going. And then after that study break week, you've got, say, 3 weeks of exams. So you've got basically these last 4 weeks post the semester, which is your study time. So yeah, that's the post-semester season, those last, say, 4 weeks, a study week and 3 exam weeks. Your in-semester is those main 12 weeks. That's what I mean by each of those. And we're going to mainly be focusing on number one during in-semester, and I'll show you guys why. So to understand the content and the theory of law well, you need to go through each topic slowly. Again, in law, a lot of these concepts can be quite difficult to understand, especially as you progress through your law degree. You'll realize more and more. A lot of them are quite complex, and, on its face, they won't necessarily be easy to grasp with. So you need to go through them more slowly. I would recommend. If you can go through them quickly and you understand it, by all means do that, like all the power to you. But again, they do tend to get quite a bit difficult. And this is your base, this theory, and your platform to launch off during the exam period. So if you already don't have a steady base, when you actually get to that post-semester period, it's going to take a while for you to actually get into, doing a heap of practice questions and everything and getting a lot better, at applying that theory if you don't even know the theory in the first place. Like if you don't have your building set, your foundation set, how are you going to be able to scale it up? You're just going to fall through the cracks. You need to have a set, steady foundation. Then to understand a topic well, so say you've got all your different topics of a subject, say you're looking at criminal law and you're looking at all the kind of death stuff, like murder, manslaughter. Then you go on to the next one and it's like assault and everything like that. A lot of the time, again, to understand a topic well, what I would do when I'm learning a topic is, this is again the in-semester period, is I would look at a summarization of the notes which my university has. So just going over, glossing over the notes of a topic. And then I'd go to seminars and let what, your lecturers are saying, just what your lecturer teachers, people, what they're saying, wash over you. Again, all these lecture people are all really smart and, they know the nuances of the law really well. A lot of the time they are people that have been practicing in it and they're actually exceptional to listen to. A lot of the time people will say stuff, other of your classmates and stuff, may say stuff like, oh, this lecture is really boring. And they might be, they genuinely might be boring. But that doesn't mean that they don't know what they're talking about. Because a lot of the time, again, universities, they hire academics. These lecturers and everything, they're academics, which is, meant to be someone smart. And again, like 99% of the time, they are really smart. Even if they're not the most entertaining person to listen to. Maybe you want to go and bring like Subway Surfers to your class and just so you can, make sure you're staying focused. But I didn't tend to listen to my lecturers and stuff that well in semester 2 of this year. I got a bit lazy with that and I didn't really look at the notes before class. So I didn't get kind of like an overarching kind of view of what they were talking about, which meant that I didn't really know what they were talking about. Like if I don't even know, say obviously murder is pretty self-explanatory, everyone knows it. But say if it was a more complex type of thing, which, I've never heard of or anything, and then I just hear my lecturer going into some deep nuances of it in class, like I'm not even gonna know anything about it. I can't really know the most highly detailed things if I don't even know the most basic thing of what we're even talking about, So that's why I would suggest, certainly looking over like a summarization of the notes of that topic before you go to class, so you can kind of just let what they're saying wash over you and you do understand it, even if it is just at a more, say, fundamental level. And again, you obviously can get into some of the more nuances as you keep going. So again, we're focusing on theory here. We're not focusing yet on the application predominantly, like you would do, say, in the post-semester period, while you're preparing for an exam. However, doing a little bit of application can be really good to clarify concepts. So what I would suggest immediately, say, within 24 hours of after you've gone to your lecture, so you started off by looking at your notes, then you've gone to your lecture, then you come back and you're at home, whatever. Then I would suggest pretty much doing a question after learning that theory, and after you do that question, or look at the answers for the question, just so it clarifies it a little bit more. Again, you don't have to do a heap of application at this stage, but just doing one, like literally like one singular question, will just clarify like 50% of things which you may not fully understand. So like one question is huge. Like it doesn't even have to take that long, like 10, 20 minutes. That's all you need, for this in-semester block. And like really just look at, again, the arguments that were made in that like answer guide that you're looking at. Again, like from thinking about what answers could be made on each side when you're ultimately answering a law question is huge. And that's the bulk of it. That's where a lot of marks are, when you can really just think about like what each party would argue, And so Make It Stick in chapter 2 really clarifies. So this is a book, book I'm actually reading right now. And this is a really good book, which talks about why just rereading notes, why rereading, like I said before, looking at a summarization on the notes at the start is really good. But if you're just rereading it 10 times, it doesn't really do anything for you, You need to actually be practicing some active recall stuff, like doing a question. Really, really good. And Make It Stick, which is a book, and specifically chapter 2 of the book, if you want to just take a read of it, clarifies why some application is necessary to do. Again, you don't have to do much, but just doing like 10, 20 minutes, max even 30 minutes is huge, absolutely huge. When, ultimately, even if you're in week 3 of your semester and you've got your exam still in 3 months' time, it's going to put you in so much of a better place than if you never did that. And again, it takes a little bit more time, but it's not even a lot in the grand scheme of things. So yeah, like I said, ideally you do the above during the in-semester period, so by exam time, exam season, you already are familiar with these concepts and every topic. So the reason why I'm saying you don't necessarily need to go through a lot of applications, do a lot of questions during that in-semester period, is because you'll forget a lot of those nuances by the time the exam time comes around. Again, say, if you've got your exam in November or December and you're studying this in August, you study one topic in August, you get really good at it by doing a heap of questions, but then next week you've got another topic and you've got to get really good at that. You'll forget the stuff that you learned, the previous week by November if you never keep going back to it. So there's no point really of just getting really good at it in August. You're not playing for anything unless you've got an assessment on that week or something, or maybe the following week. Then yeah, by all means go for it if you've got like an in-semester assessment. But if you're only looking at that post-semester exam, then there's no point really. Again, unless you've got an assessment right around that time. And that's counterintuitive. Like I'm literally like suggesting that you shouldn't work as hard as you could. And that's for good reason, because you probably have a lot of topics. You don't want to ban yourself out by the time you get to that in-semester period, because that in-semester period, or that post-semester period rather, around exam time, that's when you want to be, going as hard as possible. That's when you want to be absolutely locked in. You don't want to be burnt out like a lot of students get towards that end of semester period, because you've already spent so much energy, so much effort during the semester. So, you want to periodize yourself, and periodizing is something I'll get onto a bit further in this video. But yeah, like I said, so especially if you're studying in August and your exam is in November, you'll forget a lot of those nuances if you don't go back to them. And if you don't need to go back to them for September or October, what's the point of knowing in August if you can just learn it again in November and you can get through in November and be your best? Again, I'll get back to this in a bit. So, but the reason to have a go at one question, again, not suggesting many, but just one question when you do, learn the theory for the first time in like August, is twofold. So the benefits are twofold. So it gives you a guide as to what a question would be like. Again, like Sally kills Harry, you can get a guide. Obviously going to be a lot more detailed than that, a factual scenario. But, you can get a guide as to what it would be like. And earlier topics do relate to later topics. So you may not be able to get, the topic that you're looking at in week 5 if you don't know the content for week 3 and week 4. So that's why I would suggest knowing it in a little bit of detail. It doesn't have to be as high as detailed as possible, but just a little bit is really good to have. Okay, so this is the post-semester block. So this is where the money comes. This is money season. This is where you make a name for yourself. Exam time. So when you enter into exam season, and this is what I would advocate for students who I do privately tutor or anything for law, spam your practice exams. In my opinion, and some people may say you don't need to do practice exams. I remember I had a lecturer say that. They were like, I never did a practice exam. Look, if you never did a practice exam and it works for you, again, all the power to you, like I said before. But for most people, it makes a massive difference. And so what I would advocate is do a lot of them, and as many as possible. But with the caveat of you must complete them all earnestly. And what do I mean by earnestly? Just by the fact of, you can't spend 10 minutes on a question which you should be spending 20 minutes on. Take the time to do them well. Take the time to learn from them. Usually when you're doing a first exam, your first practice exam, for a subject, you're going to take much longer than what you would intend to do it for in the actual exam. Say in the actual exam you have 2 hours, and you're doing your first practice exam for that subject. You may take 3 hours, 4 hours, even longer than that, and that's okay. You've got to give yourself the time to do well. You're obviously not going to be as good at your first practice question as you would be on your 10th one, like you would hopefully have by that experience by the time you walk in on exam day. So if you don't have the answers for all questions, because I know sometimes universities and whatnot don't provide answers for every single practice exam, get together with your friends and compare your answers. Again, just looking at like arguments, how you each thought of different things is huge, absolutely huge. Next thing, make sure you realize all the mistakes that you make and you revise these thoroughly, because what a lot of people do is, say you make a mistake on the 20th of October, you've got your exam on the 28th of October. So they do practicing exams, say every day on the 20th, 21st, 22nd, 23rd, and so on. They'll do the exam on the 20th, then they'll do another exam on the 21st, then they'll do another exam on the 22nd, but they won't review any of their mistakes that they made on the 20th or the 21st. Sure, they'll review them immediately after they do that exam, but they won't review it any further. And so by the time the 28th comes and they have their actual exam, they don't remember any of the mistakes they made. And really, if they went back, they'll realize they've been making the same mistakes over and over and over again. The whole point of doing these practice exams is to learn, learn from your mistakes and not repeat them. Really have the mentality that you can make a mistake once, it's okay, but don't do it twice. Have that mentality. Obviously, sometimes you will make a mistake multiple times, and that's okay. But have the mentality, really put a focus on not trying to do that. Have the intention of not making the same mistake twice. Okay, now we get on to periodizing your study. So what this really means in effect is you want to be at your absolute best on exam day. So again, say your exam is on the 28th of October and your study period your study period finished the week before that or whatever. And then you studied a lot then, and then you've gone and started studying for another subject on the 22nd of October because you've got your exam for that a week after. So say you've got an exam for criminal law in week 1 of the exam period, then you've got an exam on, say, tort law in week 2 of the exam period, and so on and so forth. So what happened in the study week before week 1 was you studied for criminal law, then in week 2 you studied for tort law. And then what happened, in the study week you studied for criminal law, in week 1 you studied for tort law. But in week 1 you've got your criminal law exam, which you haven't even done yet. In that circumstance, why would you, you can start studying for tort law, sure, but you've got to put a focus still on studying for criminal law and making sure by week 1, on the day of the exam of criminal law, you are at your absolute best. You don't want to be at your best for it in the study week and then be on a slow decline. You want to be on your absolute best on the day of the criminal law exam for criminal law, and the tort law exam for the following week. You want to be at your absolute best for that on the day of the tort law exam. Again, you can start studying for them all because again, you need to find some balance. You don't want to just put all your eggs in one basket for studying or for criminal law, and then for the tort law exam, you want to only give 3-4 days for that. But you want to periodize yourself. Make sure you just know what's going on, basically. And that's kind of logical, obviously. So that was that point. And then again, exam times can be stressful, and sometimes it's not fully possible to periodize yourself, if you do have a lot of exams in a short span of time. And so it's important to make sure that for each one, you're as I was saying, as prepared as you can, as best as you can on the actual day of the exam. For example, in semester 1 this year, periodizing, for every exam singularly, it was not really possible in effect, because what I had was I had my equity exam on the Monday, I had my constitutional law exam on the Tuesday, and then I had another commerce exam on the Wednesday. I couldn't just make sure for Monday I was my absolute best and I only studied equity, because the following day I had constitutional law, and the day after that I had commerce, so I had to balance them all up, So that was a bit more difficult, and it wasn't as easy as it was, say, in semester 2 for me this year, when in week 1 of the exam period I had property, then week 2 I had a full week basically to study for my commerce exam, then week 3 I had another full week where I could study for my corporations exam. So yeah, it just depends on your schedule, obviously. Sometimes it can be more stressful, more difficult to balance than others, but you just gotta weigh it up and make sure you're as prepared as possible. Another thing, this is something which I've never heard anyone say before, but it is, I could not recommend this more highly. If you have lectures or seminars which are recorded, and if you stayed till the end, then you deserve a tip like this, because it will help you out massively. So if you've got these lectures or seminars, whatever it is that are recorded, I would highly recommend watching these back during your, study week or the exam period when you're studying for your actual exam. You don't really need to do it too much during your actual semester, but post exams, once you've actually started doing practice exams, watching lectures and seminars back is huge, absolutely huge. And it's because, again, like I was saying, when you go to lectures in person for the first time, a lot of the concepts that your teachers may be talking about will go over your head, because you may not necessarily know everything in exquisite detail yet. But now that you've actually been doing practice exams and everything, those nuances you will understand. And because other people aren't going back and watching these lectures again, so for even say a second time, if they were there in person for the first time and then for the second time they're watching it back, they're not going to realize a lot of these. And so you'll have a lot of this really high level understanding which other people won't, which then you can use. And that will just obviously put you ahead of the pack. And so that's why I'd highly recommend that. However, again, a caveat for this one is do not waste your valuable study time on watching back these lectures. Your study time should be spent on practice questions and practice exams. That is your number one priority. That's what's going to get you, to the highest grade possible. It's not going to be, watching lectures, because again, that's kind of like theory, and your theory can improve obviously during this point, like I've been saying, by watching these lectures back, understanding some nuances, but you really need to focus on application during this point in time. And so, yeah, like I said, for that reason, spend your time predominantly on practice questions and exams. But watch your lectures and seminars, again, if they're recorded. If they're not recorded, you can't really do this. But if they are, like a lot of universities do have nowadays, watch them back at other points throughout the day. So example, this is a bit degenerate because I know, you should be eating dinner as a family or whatever, but a lot of people nowadays, they do just watch, YouTube during lunch or dinner, like myself even a lot of the time. So yeah, if you do that, just don't watch YouTube for that like 2 weeks that you're studying for your exam. Watch the seminars back, watch the lectures back. I remember I was doing that for this past semester. It helped me massively. I only discovered that this semester. It's a game changer. It really is, Like I was just watching these 3-hour seminars back while eating lunch on 2 times speed, to be fair as well. But yeah, massive, massive difference. And it's really good. Really, really, really helps. And this last point, yeah, so the seminars and lectures, those are really good, especially so for problem questions, they're really good, but also even for if your exam does have policy questions. So, an essay style question, for example, the one that I've got here, director's duties are too lenient, discuss. It'll really help that, because a lot of the time, again, your lecturers and your teachers, they're the ones who are making your exam, So what they discuss for a lot in class, that's usually what they're gonna make your policy question about. So that gives you, again, like a direct kind of advantage on other people if they haven't watched that stuff back again. And if it was, 2 months ago when they were discussing director's duties, but you watched it, 2 days before the exam, then you're gonna have a lot more information ready, fresh in your mind to go and write down. So that's how I would study for exams, definitely. And again, like I've been saying, this is what I've just discovered. This is what's helped me get the highest marks ever that I have in law, and yeah, put me in position to succeed and get marks and put an effort, obviously, that I'm proud of. So that's all for now. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.